Hey, what's up, you guys? Welcome to another episode of Taryn Swears. And I really do have a heartfelt special episode for you guys. I'm so excited for you to meet Stephanie. I'm going to give you a little background on how Stephanie and I know each other. And I think immediately you guys are going to fall in love. Because I did, as soon as I heard and spoke with her online. I just had this immediate draw energetically to her. And so that's really the premise of what she's going to share with you today. But we met through a group coaching community that we were a part of, all like-minded individuals that just were ridiculously passionate about living our truth and being able to truly send our message out that genuinely helps and supports people to be better and just bring better light to the universe. And so when we actually met in person, which was that June of last year,
Yes.
April, June, yeah,
June. Yes.
it was just like magnetic, right? As soon as I saw you, we had a great big hug, and I was like, this is exactly the person that I knew she would be. And I feel really fortunate that most anyone I've met in that type of community, I know exactly who I'm getting. But I just immediately clicked with Stephanie's soft demeanor, but her woo-woo edge. So, and what I mean, and I mean that in the best way. Like, I have such a woo-woo side that not many people know, because sometimes it could be a little controversial with the alignment, that's outside of, I don't know, industry standards or even just expectations of an individual. But I really was drawn to what she had to share. So a little bit about Stephanie. She's a relationship healer. She's a soul contract expert, and she's going to explain to you guys what that is. But an intuitive energy reader. And that fascinates me to no end. So I'm excited that she's going to share a bit. And a lot of you guys are going to relate to her story because she's going to speak to her struggles with energetic infertility. And I know a lot of you guys have gone through miscarriages, IVF, and all the challenges that birthing and motherhood comes with. And I think Stephanie's going to have such a great light and hopefully some guidance to help support you through all that. And she's just got a wicked story. So I'm really excited for you to talk about it, Stephanie, and for everyone to hear just the light and the love that you exude just naturally. So thank you so much for being on with me today.
Thank you so much for having me on. I feel like the same was with you when I saw you and I connected with you. It just felt like an answered prayer, right? You look for people that see you and that hear you and that love you enough not to empathize with you. And what I mean by that is that you stay fully present and you stay fully resourced, and that we allow each other to shine. And I feel like in a world where, especially with women having so many other issues with women and the competitive nature that we're taught to have, to connect with someone where there's a collaborative nature and it's a support system and it's an excitement that you are going out into the world and sharing your gifts, also just feels like such a privilege. So, and the work you do is extraordinary.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Well, like you said before, I think we hit the record button. I think we have a very collaborative relationship, just what you do and what my goals in helping women. And I really do think, and I hope people feel this when they listen to this, because I think people will listen to it when it's right for them. Something that'll come across their news feed, they'll see it on their favorite podcast application. But I really think that people come into your life for a reason. And whether, those of you out there that, believe in God or have a faith base, or just the intuitive, the universe stars aligned type of thought process too. Stephanie, I think, came into my life when I needed it, and I've just drawn and learned so much. And you just have such a unique and cool story. And I feel like I just was like grabbing onto every single word anytime you said anything. So would you be willing to just kind of share a little bit of maybe how you got into all of this and really what your story is and what led into it, like what your calling was into all of this?
Yes, absolutely. And I also just want to start by saying that the work that I do, just like the work you do, is really meant to be inclusive. I am not here to challenge anybody's relationship with the creator energy that they support, or what they call it. So my work is really meant to be a supportive voice in a space where there's just a lot of noise and a lot of confusion. And so my story is interesting in that I am a walk-in soul. And what that means is that the original soul who chose to come into this body chose really dark and dense circumstances to be born into. She grew up in a household where there was sexual abuse, all kinds of other abuse, and neglect. And what was happening was, when she was having these sexual abuse experiences, she was having out-of-body experiences. So while her physical body was being abused, her energetic body was out of her body. And I was there with her as a non-physical guide. And I know this sounds wild, and I've been through more therapy than anybody can imagine to validate that I'm not crazy and I'm not, schizophrenic or anything else. No judgment against anybody who does suffer with that, but that's not my experience. And so I was there as a non-physical guide supporting her, as was my oldest son, who's now Earthside with me. And I'll share about our story. But what makes, I feel like, the work so interesting is that being a guide to a soul who is going through such painful experiences in life, you quickly learn that soul love, or energetic love, does not translate to life love here. So while the father who is sexually abusing her on that soul level, on that energy level, was from a place of love, down here in life, it doesn't play out that way. And so I feel so passionate about helping people in their life here, right? Because we could be as spiritual as we want, as woo as we want. We could, read all the books and get all the crystals and do all the moon circles, and we can pray, we can energize the religions that we support. But at the end of the day, if you don't know how to thrive in your physical body, if you don't know how to transform your subconscious belief systems, if you don't know how to regulate your nervous system, then all of the spirituality that you subscribe to doesn't translate. And so that's the work that I feel really called to do. And that's the work that I do here with people. And my story is an access point because it is so different, and because it is also, I feel that when people hear it, even though it's wild, it resonates with people because I embody it. This is my truth. So I got into this work because it's who I am. I don't know any other way to be or to process this world.
Well, and that's what I think is fascinating is it was just a intuitive guidance, right? If I'm correct in saying that. And I know you speak a lot to the soul contract of, the experience and the energetic movement behind it. Can you kind of expand a little bit on what soul contract might be? So someone that's like, okay, I get this, but I'm not quite sure how to connect that part to it, because I know there's so much more to expand on in this story, which I'm just like on the edge of my seat for people to hear, just because
Yes.
I know it. But yeah, if you could just speak a little bit to that would be awesome.
Sure. So before we incarnate, and this is coming from 100% of my knowing, this is like, if you're talking about how you just celebrated the holidays with family and friends, like that's how I'm talking about this experience. So before we incarnate, before we come into this life, we meet with a light team. And so there's a meeting where you could call it your guides or your angels or your spirit animals or your ancestors or your highest self. And you talk about the lessons that your soul wants to learn. And these lessons are very general. They're not, I want to learn this lesson from this person at this time. It's more like an overview. So Somebody may want to learn a lesson of forgiveness. And then there is free will. So that person can learn forgiveness by being a person who has the unforgivable happen to them and have to go through that journey. Or they could be a person who does the unforgivable to somebody else and go through that journey. And so there's just limitless potentialities in between. So after we decide on the lessons that our soul wants to learn in this lifetime, then souls start coming forward and saying, you know, I'm going to facilitate this lesson. I'm going to facilitate this lesson. And that's what I mean when I say that when we're there before we're here, it's done in love. You have souls coming forward saying, I want to support you in doing your soul's work in this lifetime. So I'm going to come in and be this teacher for you. So that could be the person who does the unforgivable to you. Or it could be the person who comes into your life and helps you to forgive. And again, there's limitless potentialities. And the beautiful thing about soul contract work is that even though they are all signed in love, they are not written in stone. And what that means is that when you get here, you have free will. And so you can choose differently at any point. But my gifts allow me to read the soul contracts between people. And that is especially helpful when someone is going through something that has been really hard or really dark or really traumatic, because we're able to focus on the lesson instead of the person who was teaching the lesson. And what that does is it breaks that pattern. It breaks the repeating pattern. And I'm really passionate about that.
So it sounds like that would be almost for someone that's gone through something traumatic. And I know that you have that experience and that story too, that's, you know, woven into your being, that is a healing process for them. Would that be fair to say?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it doesn't take away that what happened to you really happened to you, or what that person did to you, they really did to you. We're not going to just, you know, I'm not a big fan of, you know, look on the bright side, find the blessings and the challenges. That I don't think that's helpful. I think that actually creates a lot of shame and a lot of frustration for somebody who's already been through something really challenging. So it's the exact opposite. I want to hear the story. I want to hear what that person did to you. And then I want to take the focus off of them, because at the end of the day, we have no control over what they're thinking, how they're feeling, what they're saying, or what they're doing. And I want to bring focus back to you so that you can have more clarity, live with more peace, and ultimately be free from that.
And I think that, like, I'm trying to I guess formulate the thoughts and the elaboration on that, but I don't have that to do just because that's, you know, like I get to learn that from you, you know? So this is, but I love how you said that doesn't dismiss really what somebody's gone through and what's been done to them or what you've gone through. Cause I know we're going to talk about infertility and IVF and how that, you know, makes or breaks some of the soul and the healing process behind that, but it doesn't dismiss that was happened and not trying to negate it or bless and release, like you said, that was so perfect, but allow you to appropriately heal. Because I think that a lot of us have, regardless of what the trauma, and it can be as extreme or as minute, but yet still bothersome and traumatizing to the individual, especially as a parent, right? Or anything that you experience, we tend to dwell on it and allow it to be the sole thing that frames our day-to-day, our life, our experiences, and also our excuses, right? Like I hear that from women all the time, and I don't want to dismiss for 1 second what they've been through, but also like we have to find a way to heal from that or use that experience to be able to move forward. And, you know, that's, I feel like, a big missing link, but also a really great opportunity for people to think differently after hearing this from you, right?
Yes. And it's not our fault. It is actually a sign of our brain's health to do that. That when something, the deeper the trauma, the greater the distortion around that trauma. So the deepest part of our subconscious mind, which is controlling the majority of the experiences that we have, meaning that it's responsible for how we process or don't process them, gets those two things deeply confused. So there's what happens to us, and then there's the meaning that we assign to what happens to us. And those get very confused. And so when we're going through something traumatic, a sign of our brain's health is that we go into a trauma response, right? We go into fight or flight or freeze or fawn. And we are the only animals on this planet who never get back to the regulated state. So we stay in that traumatic state because our brain never got the message that the danger is over. Our brain never got the message that we survived it. Our brain never got the message that we did what we needed to do to survive what we perceived as unsurvivable, if that's a word. And so there's that piece too. And so people get stuck, and it's actually a sign of health that they get stuck. But it's because we're not taught that after we go through something traumatic to communicate to our unconscious minds, okay, that's over. If you watch any other animal, you watch National Geographic, or you're on safari, the only time that the zebra is worried about the lion chasing it is when the zebra is getting chased by the lion. If you watch after the zebra survives, its brain tells it, okay, you survived this. The lion is away. Shake it off and get back with the herd. We're the only animals that don't shake it off. We're the only animals that still act as if it is happening. So that's not our fault. And yet we punish ourselves for it because we're like, why am I doing this again? Why does this keep happening? Why can't I let this go? It's not our fault. It's actually a sign of our brain's health and a reflection of how little understanding we have about the subconscious mind and about nervous system regulation.
Which I think is fascinating in its own right, because we can replay situations in our head over and over again, regardless of the severity of it, right? And we just dwell. And I think we're just, that's our innate ability, is to dwell on things. We get in a fight with a spouse or a kid pisses us off, and we're going to dwell on that. I mean, I probably do it every single day. If I, get mad at a kid because they did something stupid and I think about it after the fact, I'm like, I really probably didn't have to react like that, and it's just, and then you replay it and you just, you beat yourself down and but feeling like that communication tool to communicate subconsciously to the conscious mind, right? Is that the direction that we're?
Yes, where logically we know that we're not in danger anymore, but unconsciously we don't. So we are acting as if, and so we don't have any of our resources available, because just like the zebra that's getting chased by the lion, it's not thinking about anything. It's not like, oh, I can't wait to just, go drink water at the pond with my friends today. It's thinking, I have to get away from this lion. And so when we are in a trauma response, no matter how it presents for us, we don't have any resources. We're not well resourced at all. We don't have our thinking minds. We don't have the ability to feel clearly. We lose our connection to source. Again, however source shows up in your life, because all of our energy is going towards the fight or the flight. We either have to fight to save our lives or run to save our lives. And our lives, and this is also just so interesting, is that stress triggers that trauma response. Pressure triggers that trauma response. So anytime we're saying to ourselves, I need to do this, I have to do this, this is what is going to happen, we're actually bringing ourselves into that state. And we lose our ability to think clearly, respond clearly, and to connect clearly. And if you think about it, we're all in that state all the time. It takes a lot of work to not be in that state.
Well, it really does, and I think that's where you get to come out of that victim mentality, right? And then that I'm not saying that as to be judgmental to anybody that has truly been a victim of a traumatizing experience, but just the willingness to learn how to adapt and come out of that and almost rewire the brain to say, okay, I am safe, or I can overcome this and get out of that victim mentality. It takes a lot of energy and it takes a lot of willpower to do that because it's almost easier to stay in that victim mentality. Would you
Yes.
say, yeah?
And it's not our fault when we're there because we don't learn this. No one is teaching us that this is how your unconscious mind works, and this is how your nervous system works, and this is how you get out of that state. No one is teaching us, but people are diagnosing us, right? You have anxiety, you have depression, you have bipolar, you have this, and then here's medication. And again, no matter what community you're in, right? There's plenty of people who are self-medicating in the spiritual communities too. They just call it plant medicine, right? So then there's people who are medicating in the traditional sense, and that's just pharmaceutical medicine. And me personally, and again, no judgment. I don't ingest any medicine or any, I've never done plant medicine. I don't ingest caffeine. I don't ingest alcohol. My system is just way too sensitive, and I feel the effects. So again, there's no judgment, but it's just looking at, it's not our fault. It's really not our fault. So you take someone who's been through a traumatic experience and then who's genuinely wanting to seek help, right? They go to the therapist, or they go to their friends, or they go to their coach, or they go to their mentor, or they go to their shaman, and there's no connection being made that it's not their fault. And so it's a cycle that continues that leads to more trauma for the person who was initially traumatized and seeking out that help.
Right, which makes perfect sense, and I know you've got an experience that a lot of women that I work with that come to me because they're having challenges with weight loss, and a lot of it is hormone related, and there is a very common theme which I want to segue into this if it's appropriate, timing wise, but infertility and the you've got a story behind that, but I think that is a very traumatic experience for women, especially those that are wanting to get pregnant, doing all the right things, right? And then do experience infertility, go through IVF or whatever is the right outlet for them. And then those that do experience a miscarriage, and I haven't experienced any of that, which I feel very, very fortunate. I have a lot of very close people in my life that have, and try to sentiment and understand what they're going through. It's so hard for me because I don't know what that's like. But you've got the story behind that I think a lot of people could learn how to heal, or maybe just make the connection to, that's it, shit, why have I been spending so much energy on that? That's just time wasted. Whereas, I can learn, or however you kind of, been able to help support women overcome stuff like that.
Yes. So what makes miscarriage, from my personal experience, so painful and debilitating is that it is a loss of a future life that you will never experience. Not only are you not experiencing your future with that child, you are not experiencing yourself as the mother of that child. And so it is a multi-layered loss. And it is trauma because the body goes through, our bodies are amazing. And it's also a traumatic experience for the physical body as well. And so, like I said at the beginning of the call, so my oldest son and I were both non-physical guides to the original soul who was born into this body. And I walked into this body when the body was 17 years old. It was during a surgery, and that's because the original soul reached a point in her life where she was going to take her own life because she couldn't hold both that on a soul level, she knew that her father was, that he loved her, right? And that here he was the darkest, most brutal person to her. There was nothing nice that you could say about this man. And so the next time I met Justin as an energy was about 10 years before he came into this world. It was before I met my husband, who was his father. And he was just always with me. He was always with me. He was always by my side. I just felt him as an energy. And I knew that so much of my purpose in this life was to be his mom and to support him in his purpose. So, and I would talk to him and I would just show him the world through my eyes. And he felt like home. He felt like home. And I was just so excited that we were connecting again and that I was going to have the privilege of being his mom. So fast forward, I meet my husband, who is his father. I say it's a match made in heaven because as soon as I saw my husband walking on the beach, waving to me, he said, Mom, that's Dad. So on our first meeting, I knew that my future husband was going to be his future father. And fast forward, we have our fairy tale wedding. We get pregnant that night and we go to the doctor and we find out that there is no heartbeat. Now, if you experience a miscarriage, I say that I was really fortunate in that it was the most painful and also the most gentle, because it was the very, very, very beginning. I did not have the time to experience my body going through these big, significant changes. And so I just want to put that into perspective because I do feel very blessed that my experience was as gentle as it was, because I have held space for women who have not had, by any means, a gentle experience at all. And so I just want to put that into perspective. So I'm just sharing my experience. And so it was the loss of a life, but it was also that what is wrong, because I knew the soul that I was supposed to bring into this world. Like I knew I was supposed to be his mom. And so it was very disorienting, and it took everything that I knew and it turned it upside down. I should add that the original soul, because of all of the abuse that she went through, struggled with what I call energetic infertility, and that she was never able to birth her heart's desires. So there's literal infertility where we can't either get pregnant, we can't continue a pregnancy, or we don't have the ability to bring a child into this world through us. And then there's energetic infertility, which is a state of frustration where we have these experiences that we want to have in our life and we can't seem to make them happen. So now I went from understanding what the original soul went through with energetic infertility. Now I'm having my own experience with literal infertility, where now I have death inside of me, and it is the loss of not only a future that I knew I was destined to have, but also of a connection with the soul that I knew I was supposed to bring into this world through me. And so we went through the DNC, we made sure that I was able to, that my husband and I were able to have a healthy baby together. And the doctor said, when you are ready, you are able to try again. So we tried again and I got pregnant. And again, I consider myself very lucky that I did not have the struggles that so many other women go through. And I have a beautiful pregnancy, a beautiful labor and delivery, and a beautiful son. And I give birth to the soul that I had known before I got here, and then 10 years before he got here. He is a very just energetic, dynamic soul, and it's probably about 3 years old, sitting in the bathtub, And he's giving me the rundown of his day at school, you know, what centers he did and who he played dinosaurs with and, you know, what the Parasaurolophus eats all day. And he says, Mom, I remember choosing you as my mom before I got here. And it stopped me. I started to like well up, do it
Holy
now.
shit. You're not kidding. I'm just like I got goosebumps.
Yeah. And
Okay.
he says, and just like he's telling me about centers, I get so emotional every time. And he says, you know, first I was in your belly as a girl, and I needed to be a boy in this lifetime. He said, so I had to get out of your belly. And I was like, it sounds like the drama of me asking him to brush his teeth. Like I had to go brush my teeth. So he's like, I had to get out of your belly. I had to go all the way back up to God. I had to pick my baby brother. I had to wait for you to be my mom again.
Oh my
And
God.
now he's like, Mommy, why are you crying? And I'm like, oh, I mean, I'm not
You make me cry. Wow. That's powerful.
crying.
Wow.
And Taryn, that was my experience because we found out from the DNC that I was pregnant with, like all the testing, that I was pregnant with a girl.
Oh my God.
And when I had the privilege of having a healthy pregnancy, having a healthy delivery, and then having a healthy boy and being a mom to this healthy boy, I felt so complete that I never would have asked for another child. And I never, ever, I was so full and so grateful. I never would have asked. And so when we got pregnant with Ari, our second son, I said to myself, Justin must have wanted the experience of having a brother because I never, and now obviously that Ari's part of our family, I know that our family was not complete without him. And I feel like it's such a privilege to be his mom too. But I never would have called that in because I felt so grateful. And so what I feel so called to share this story is because when we go through a miscarriage or we go through an infertility struggle, we're made to feel like there's something wrong with our body. What's wrong with us? We didn't have sex in the right position. We don't have our hormones balanced. We're not eating right. You know, we're not fit enough. We're not fat enough. We're not this enough. Like we do this to ourselves. Like there's something wrong with me. And then we go through all the testing, and then that helps us see where we can make better choices or we can do things differently. But the whole experience is, you know, what's wrong with my body that I can't do this? My friend's body can do this. My sister's body can do this. My mom's body did this. What's wrong with my body? And we never think about it from a perspective of what are we facilitating for the soul who's looking to come in through us? Or what are the soul's needs that's looking to come through us, right? If we choose our parents before we get here, then there is a rightness to an infertility journey, not a wrongness. And so what Justin taught me is that I facilitated something for him. He didn't want to be in the body that he originally chose. And so he corrected that for himself. There was nothing wrong with me or my body. That was the meaning that I gave to the trauma. But when I let go of that meaning, I was able to see, no, I facilitated something for him. I was a beautiful home for him. He did not want to be in the body that he originally chose. And he corrected that for himself. And now it's a matter of shifting that for other people so that they're not, so that women are not only, you know, the trauma of it is bad enough, but then the meaning of it, that there's something wrong with them, can be shifted if they looked at it from the relationship of, you know, what are you doing to support the soul who's looking to come into this world through you? And maybe the timing isn't right. Maybe the partner's not right. And maybe the environment's not right. And maybe the hormones aren't right, which is where you are such a gift to everyone, that you could sit and hold that pain and yet give them that promise there's hope. There's hope for you because we can bring your system back into balance, and we can do so much of what the environment and all the popular choices have done. And so that's just why I feel so called to share this story and hopefully share it from a perspective where they're able to see. And also, you know, Justin facilitated something for the original Soul too, because he was her first experience birthing love. He healed her energetic infertility. And he, for me, was just that piece of home, because no matter how blessed my life is, there's still such a homesickness for the oneness in the place that I call home. So yes, if that could gift anybody a different way of processing it, and it could separate their trauma and the meaning that they've given to their trauma, and it could allow them to be present enough and well-resourced enough to work with someone like you who actually can help them get their hormones back into balance, and who can hold that space for them that says, like, we're going to figure this out. Your body's really amazing, and I'm going to be able to help you get your body online to act the way that it would without all of the interruptions that we're faced with, that we don't even realize that we're faced with.
Totally.
That's the goal.
Wow. I mean, I think like the hair raised up on my arms and like literally every other sentence. And what I felt was such a powerful message is, you know, the fact that Justin decided to heal the daughter, right? That, you know, the misfortune of her not being able to be here. But the fact that you were able to kind of choose the love and light from it, and the fact that Justin was meant to be, and the fact that you knew that 10 years ahead of time. I mean, that is trippy shit. And, you know, and sorry to be like vulgar about it, but it really is, but in the best and like most interesting way, you know. And I feel like we all have this intuitive nature about ourselves, but we don't necessarily trust it. Right. I think we've lost trust with our ability to be intuitive, our ability to listen to our bodies, because we give so much trust to other authorities, right? And in that regard, I mean, we trust our doctors, we trust social media, we trust influencers that tell us to do this, that, or the other, instead of the only soul being in this universe that knows exactly how we feel internally. No doctor, no scientist, no nothing is going to be able to tell you how your body feels, but you were able to embrace that intuitive sense. And so I guess let me ask you this, because it prompts a question. Would you say that every human being, male or female, has that opportunity to think the way that we do about this, that we are given this soul and there's a purpose to it? Or is that something that, you know, this might kind of go out of the whole realm of things, and maybe I can't cater it to, or, you know, put it to the question that I'm thinking internally, but is everybody have this ability, or is it really just like chosen people?
Oh my gosh, everybody has this ability. We just are taught to shut it down at such a young age. We're taught not to think, and we're taught that we only have 5 senses, right? We're taught that the only senses that make our reality real are the senses that we experience as real, as tangible. You know, what we smell, what we taste, what we hear, what we see, and how we feel. But we're not taught that we are well resourced, that we all have a connection with our intuition. And again, because we are all perpetually put into a trauma response, because our lives are so stressful and there's so much pressure, we don't have the luxury of remembering how connected we are. Because again, if we're the zebra running away from the lion, we're not thinking about being with our friends at the watering hole. And if we're a human who feels like we are running out of a burning building, we're not thinking about what we want to have for dinner or what friends we should be connecting with. We
True.
are, we have no resources. We're not thinking, we're not feeling, we're not connected. So, oh my gosh, yes. And that is such another important aspect of our work. And I think that what makes you and me so complementary is that you know the body's wisdom. You know that our physical body is amazing. You help people, and if I'm talking out of turn, please let me know, but this is just how I experience when I hear about the work that you do and when you speak about the work that you do, that you help people get out of their own way and stop interrupting their body's natural way of doing things. You bring people back to the state that is there, where their body knows how to heal and knows how to release the right chemicals at the right time in the right way to get the right results or the right feeling. And I feel like my work is so similar in that way, in that I'm just reminding people that there's a lot of influences that shut down that connection. And my job is just to help you remember, you've got this. I'm not doing anything to you at all. You know your answers. You are your healer. I'm just going to help you get out of your own way, because it's not your fault that you're in your own way, just how it's not your client's fault if they come to you and their hormones are imbalanced. It's not their fault if they don't know what's in the foods that we're eating, or the air that we're breathing, or the chemicals that we're using to wash our bodies, or it's not their fault, because we're not taught to ever think about this. And even if we were, we're in such a trauma state that we can't think anyway. So yes, like, yes, this is why I am such a fan and love the work you do, because you are not saying I have your answers. You're saying your body has this wisdom. I'm going to help you tune into it. I'm going to help your body remember what it knows how to do. And I feel like I'm doing the same thing, just energetically, with people and their connection.
And which is amazing, and I feel like we need more of that. And it's so, and do you find, and maybe not, because the people that come to you, and I want to make sure that they have, those that are listening, that they have a way to connect with you. And so all your connections and stuff will be in the show notes, but I do want you to share something at the very end. But I do feel like those that probably come into your life or are seeking you out, like they're ready, right? Like they know that is the next step and the next viable option for them. It's the ones that don't quite get what we do or what we mean behind it, that don't trust, I guess, the process. They won't trust their bodies anymore because they've been so manipulated, not the person, but their bodies have been so manipulated by outside influences because they think those outside influences know better. So they're scared to go, well, this person doesn't have a PhD or a bunch of acronyms behind their name, so they're not going to be able to fix me, right? Like I need to go to where all the, the people that are telling me to take this and, and when, again, no judgment, it's because they don't know any different, or they haven't been open to the idea. And that's where I feel like we have such a complementary opportunity, because we get to take it to that point for them to say, listen, you've got to get back in touch with your body, from a spiritual sense, but also from a physical sense, and trust the innate ability that your body has to heal. But you have to be able to get back to that holistic foundation, right? And build on it. And it's a process. And sometimes it's a process that we have to work through for the rest of our lives, right?
Yes.
So,
yes.
I mean, so much just like, I feel like I want to go on for hours on this, just because you're so enjoyable to listen to, Stephanie. I mean it. I mean, just like what you've gone through and how that vision, for other people to see it and feel it, because like I've never gotten teary on a podcast before, and just your story with, Justin telling you in the bathtub that he chose you as his mom, and just as he's casually talking about dinosaurs. Like if that doesn't just hit you somewhere special, you got to reawaken your soul if that doesn't hit you hard. But in closing, if somebody that's listening that's like, okay, this is, I'm still traumatized, I'm still struggling with infertility, I'm still struggling to get over the miscarriage, and that it is my fault, it's my body that I can't. What would be, your biggest guidance for someone like that, and how they can start working on their healing? And of course, I'd want them direct them to any resources that you have connected to you. But what would be kind of your message to that woman?
So my message would be, I understand. I see you. You're not alone. I would want that woman to know that her experience is really her experience. And that even if someone has been through a parallel experience, no one will quite understand her experience. So instead of her trying to feel understood, the best gift that she could give to herself would be to understand how emotional regulation works, and to really look into that, because she is in a traumatized state. She has just went through a change in her physical body. She is gone through a change in her mind, in that the future that she envisioned for herself was taken away. And so there's the grieving process combined with a traumatic process. And then there's the meaning that's associated with it. And the goal would be to get this woman to start to see the meaning that she associated with that loss, because that's where the damage is done. And that's where that damage prevents us from moving forward, because the meaning is usually, there's something wrong with me. I'm not going to be a good mom. I can't trust my mother instincts. If I didn't know I was pregnant and I didn't eat that piece of sushi, maybe this wouldn't have happened. How come it happens for other people? So it's the meaning that keeps us trapped in this traumatic response. And again, when we're in a trauma response, we don't think clearly. So they wouldn't think to reach out to you, who specializes in hormones. We don't feel clearly. So they wouldn't be able to step away from the pain that the meaning they associated with the trauma is giving to them, to be able to be present to hear you. And then they're disconnected from their intuition, because intuition is a luxury if you think that you're in survival mode, if your mind is telling you this is a life or death situation. And so at the core of it, if they could look at the meaning and work on that, then they would be resourced enough. They'd be out of that survival mode where they could work with somebody like you, who could help their body do what it knows how to do best.
Well, I think that's probably the thing that could define this entire conversation, is that there's so much meaning to everything that happens in our lives, right? Whether we think it's a positive meaning or a negative meaning, or we can't believe that we deserved it, but there's a meaning behind anything. And so when you said you've got to find the meaning associated with that loss, that might just define this entire conversation perfectly to those that are like, I'm still, a little lost. Because it takes, it might take somebody a little, maybe to listen to this twice to go, okay, I get what she's saying. So where can people find you? Like, where do you hang out most, so someone could connect with you and be like, I just want to be and hear and be around her energy?
Thank you. Yeah. Yes, so I am Stephanie the Walk-In on Instagram, and I many times, because I want my work to be as accessible as possible, I often do Q&As where I will, receive guidance for people or support them. I am always running a relationship solutions coaching group for women, and that's a really beautiful, safe space. And then I have my one-on-one clients that I work with, and yes, and so to be able to connect with you and to collaborate with you and to address someone's concerns on a physical level, which I am not qualified to do, then an emotional, energetic level, which I am, just again is hopefully just a sign of hope that there are people like you and me teaming up in the world to help these women remember who they are. And ultimately, if I could just share one last thought, is that you're never given a heart's desire without that desire to be your experience. You know, your heart's desires are your destiny. And so if you are looking to be a mom and that's in your heart, that can't not happen. Of course, it could look many different ways, and sometimes it's not the way that we think, but you are never given a desire without that desire becoming your destiny. That's what I would want these women to know, just as a branch of hope while they may be feeling hopelessness or just in the middle of their dark.
I think that is probably the best statement that we could leave women with, because I do think that that gives them a lot of hope and validation. So thank you for sharing that. I will make sure to have all the links so you can find Stephanie. You can go and see what her work is about. And if you do want to connect with her to be a part of her coaching groups or her one-on-ones, all that will be available in the show notes. Stephanie, thank you so much for lending your energy and lending your insight, intuitiveness, and your ability to just hopefully help and heal somebody that's listening, because I know you'll have a flood of women going, oh my gosh, this is just exactly what I needed to hear. So thank you. I really do appreciate you. And I'm just so glad that we came into each other's lives. I really am.
Thank you. And thank you again for the work that you do. And I can't wait for you to guest speak in my coaching group. So that we're going to figure out offline next. Yes.
Yay. Okay, we'll do that. Well, you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. If you are listening or watching on YouTube and you found value in the podcast today, please share with somebody that might be enlightened, might need to hear Stephanie's message from today. I really appreciate all of you that tune in. And until next time, you guys have an awesome rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Bye.